Oh, hey friends. I didn't see you there. I was just studying the Bible just now. Why don't you join me? In fact, let's have a Bible study a lot together, and we'll call it PV Insights. So there you have it. Welcome to PV Insights. This is where we study the Bible together. And we call it Insights because we'll pull insights out of the Word, sometimes insights about how to study the Word, how to study the Bible for yourself. There might come a day, in fact, probably most days, you don't have a pastor hanging out with you all the time, or a theologian or a Bible teacher. Maybe it's just you. You're on your own with the Bible. What do you do then? And that's what we're here to help you with. For the first 5 episodes, we're actually going to delve into how to study the Bible. A lot of the time, later on, we'll actually study the Bible together. Sometimes these episodes, we'll pull up a text, we'll pull up a Bible verse, and we'll get right into it. We'll take the Word and we'll squeeze all of the content and that spiritual juice from it that will be oh so nourishing. Sometimes we'll have other people. It won't just be me, and we'll dig into the Word together. But basically, these first episodes, I want to share workflows into studying the Word that would hopefully be helpful to you. And so, without much further ado, let's jump into it. So here we have it today, this series for the next 5 episodes or so. I'm just calling it How to Study Your Bible. You will love it. All right. So basically, we're going to share just a handful of techniques through this series together. In each of those episodes, we'll go through a method of how to study the Bible. We'll look at read-through overview, just basically reading the Bible straight through. Pretty much as simple as that, although we've got some tips to share. The what, so what, now what method, okay? How to basically open a passage and really get something out of it. Basically a tool that will help you dig into the Word and pull out meaningful content from it. Thirdly, we have peeling. What is peeling? Well, have you ever had someone encourage you to go deeper in the Word? Or have you ever been frustrated in your own study of the Word? You might be going through a passage and you're like, wow, you know what? Every time I study the Bible, I feel like it's always shallow. I don't seem to get past the surface. How do I go deeper with it? This peeling method is a tool that will help you go deeper into the Word. So, looking forward to that one. And then the last 2, these are more like theological methods of how to really get into the Word and how to handle the text in such a way where you can apply it in your time, but also really take an approach to it where you can understand what the text was doing at the time that it was written and how it is still alive to this day. So the Their Town, Our Town helps us with that. Not only that, but also the world behind the text, the world within the text, and the world in front of the text. More on that when we get to them. So on this episode together, we're going to take a look at read through overview. So if you were ever to be dropped off into a location you've never been before, in a place on planet Earth that you've also never been before, and you look around, there might be some clues as to where you're at, but for the most part, you might, and especially if the people dropping off are intentional about making it difficult for you, it might be hard to know where you're at on the planet. But if you were able to somehow zoom out, maybe get on Google and look at Google Satellite and see from a 30,000 foot view, you get a really good idea of where you're at and what's all around you. So when it comes to studying the Bible, oftentimes we'll delve into the text. We'll get into the Bible, and when you're into it, you might be studying the Bible, and in this case, we're in Matthew chapter 7, okay? I might be reading this, but I may be reading what Jesus has to say, and it may be kind of tricky as to what Jesus is talking about. Why is he on this topic? Why is he on this subject? Why was it important for the people at the time? Oftentimes, pulling out and zooming out and understanding the context of what is all around the text can be really helpful. A lot of the times you can just go into the immediate surrounding areas of the text. You can read the chapter before it, the chapter after it, and get some clue. But read through overview. If you are a beginner Bible student, or if you're a Bible student who's really never zoomed out before, this is what read through overview does for you. It's simply reading the Bible from beginning all the way to end. We could also apply read through overview with a book of the Bible. So if I am studying the book of Matthew, probably my first step in delving into the text like this is I'll read the whole book first. I might read it all the way through, maybe even twice if it's a small enough book. Matthew's a little bit large. It takes about 2.5 hours to read, so I might not have time to read it twice, but I'll try to read it in one setting kind of a thing, but I read it all the way through. But here's the catch. When you're reading the Bible through, you might be tempted to, something might jump out at you and you're tempted to study it and go deep. We don't do that in read through overview. Okay, whenever that happens, I'll give you tips for that a little bit later. But anyway, what I recommend if this is your first time studying the Bible, you're like, I finally want to get into it, or maybe you've been frustrated and you just need some sort of direction. I recommend, and I know it's a big recommend, and I know it sounds a little bit wild at first, but I recommend reading the Bible from beginning all the way to the end. And you're thinking, Pastor Andrew, what are you talking about? That's a big book. This could take years to read through. Yes, correct. I recommend doing it faster than that, if possible. But when you go into a read-through overview, one way you can go about it is you can set timers. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes if you've got time. And when the timer starts, you read. When the timer goes off, you stop reading. But while you're reading, you don't stop. Don't stop for anything. If you come to a place where you're interested and it catches your eye, all you have to do is take a pencil and you just mark it. Mark it. Or maybe if you're on a computer, you just hit the bookmark button or underline the section. You can always come back to it for when you decide to use one of the other methods, like what, so what, now what, peeling and what have you, and these kinds of things. But read through overview, this is for getting the big picture, and we want to kind of get it fast. Why do you want to get it fast? Because here's the thing. If it takes you years to read from Genesis to Revelation, if it takes you several months even, by the time you get to Revelation, you might forget what was 5 books prior to. You might forget what was in the Old Testament. You might forget what was at the beginning of the New Testament. So you're not quite seeing it, how it fits together in big picture format. And so, Pastor Andrew, how do you read it fast? Well, there's a couple of ways. You could take a speed reading course. They're actually pretty helpful. I'm not going to teach you how to speed read right now, although I should have. I should have prepared a little bit of a tip on how to speed read, but we're not gonna do that. You don't have to speed read in order to do that, but that can be helpful. You take a speed reading course, you double your reading speed, and you apply it. You could probably get through the Bible obviously twice as fast as you would normally. But I'll give you another tip for it to get through it faster. Use an Audible app. Listen to it. Here's the other thing here's one of the advantages to listening to it. You can listen to it at faster speeds. You can do like 1.0, which is normal reading speed, 1.2, 5, and so on and so forth, as fast as you can comprehend it, so that by the time you get to the end of the Bible, the beginning of it is somewhat fresher in your memory still. But then by the time you start really delving into books, man, you're way ahead of the game. In fact, you'll be blown away by the confidence you have when you start delving into chapters and such. Now, I realize that's a little bit controversial. Nobody recommends doing this. Most people will recommend start at Matthew and read through the New Testament first, and even not even that. Many times it's recommended to read the book of Mark first. If that's you, and I by the way, that's not a bad way to start. It's not. But we're talking about like as delving in and becoming a Bible student, read the whole thing. Now, even with Audible, it can take some time. So let's see here. Last time I listened to the Bible on Audible, it actually did take me a couple months. I did it on my 1-hour commute to work and back. And so listening it for an hour on the way to work, listening it on the way back home I don't remember what speed I had it at, but it did take some time using that method. There are ways to expedite it. There's a way to even do it faster than Audible. Are you ready for this? I'm going to show you a cool little secret tool that I have. Actually, no, before I do that. One way you can do it is, instead of reading each book, to get an overview. Remember, the goal of the overview is to really get oriented with the whole book and kind of getting an idea of what the whole thing's about and the kind of the layout and the themes that God approaches in this inspired writing. One way to do it is if your Bible has outlines or like a brief introduction of the whole book, you could read those and then go to the next book and then read it and then go to the next book and read it. So if you set your timer for 30 minutes, that's all you're going to do. You're going to read Genesis, but just the intro, the outline, and then you're going to go to Exodus. Flip to Exodus real quick, and then you're going to read that, and then you're going to flip to Leviticus, and you're going to just read through that. But here's the catch, though. You got to overcome the temptation to read the about this book at the time, the authorship. Sometimes there's like deep write-ups on all those things. For read-through overview, remember the goal is to zoom out and kind of see the layout of the Bible for what it is. Okay, so if you get bogged down and you go down the rabbit hole of the authorship of Ephesians and so on and so forth, you start losing that picture that you're trying to build and develop. What if there was, instead of having to flip to each intro in the Bible, what if there was like a way to just extract it all and put it into one document so you can just scroll through it all at once? My friend, I have such a document that I've been putting together. Check this out. You want to see it? Okay, I thought you might. All right, look what I've got here. Let me go all the way to the top here. You might not be able to see this. That's okay. I think you can imagine what I'm talking about here on the screen here. I'll read this for you if you can't really see it. That's Genesis. And what you have here is Genesis. The first book of the Bible is a foundational text that introduces the creation of the world and the origins of humanity and the early history of God's chosen people. It can be divided into two main sections. And then here's the two main sections. I've got primeval history and patriarchal history. So right here, the first half or the first division of it, you have the creation story, the fall, Cain and Abel, the flood, the Tower of Babel. And then it switches to patriarchal history. By the time you get to chapter 12, you got the story of Abraham, and it goes into Isaac, Jacob, and eventually the story of Joseph. Right there, bam, we just overviewed the whole book of Genesis. And if you want to go just a tad deeper, you can read all the little things here. Okay, so let's say we're reading through it, we get to patriarchal history, Abraham. God calls Abram, later named Abraham, to leave his homeland and promises to make him the father of a great nation. Abraham's faith is tested through various events, including the near sacrifice of his son Isaac. So it gives you a little brief explanation of all these things. So if you were to just, this enables you to be able to just scroll through at 30, maybe 100,000 feet and just read through. Boom. Remember, we just got through Genesis in seconds, literally. And then if you scroll down, boom, Exodus. Okay. And then it just breaks it down. Israel's slavery and deliverance, the journey to Mount Sinai, and then underneath, the oppression of Egypt. Here's how this can work for you, by the way. If you want to have a 30,000 foot view, you just read everything here. Boom. And if you read everything, you could probably in a couple of hours get all the way through to Revelation and the whole thing. But you can, the beauty of this tool is you can also do a 100,000 foot view, okay, flyover, by just reading all the bold, all the headings, and you'll get an idea of how the Bible lays out all of its content, all of its story. Leviticus, boom, within seconds. So imagine if you read this for 10 minutes, you might get through maybe the first or second Samuel. You're like already almost halfway through the Old Testament. If you read for an hour or so, just reading the headings there, you might get all the way through the Bible in maybe an hour or so. And by the way, here at the Placerville Seventh-day Adventist Church, I've been giving this document to some of our teenagers, some of the youth kids, and they've been texting me with their minds blown. They're like, "Oh my goodness, Pastor, I'm I'm seeing it now. I have a grasp on the Bible. And these are some of these young people, they've never read the Bible before. They've never even studied it before, but they're starting to get excited about it and such. And so after reading this, suddenly it's like they're oriented. So then when they start to delve into the text and start studying chapters and verses, they know where they're at. You can't drop them anywhere on planet Earth if the Bible is planet Earth and not know where they're at. You can drop them anywhere in the Bible and they'll be like, okay, I get this. They have more of a context on it. Not only that, but I kind of recommend, or I do recommend rather, do this exercise maybe once a quarter. Read through it all, word for word. Do the 30,000 foot view, but maybe once a month or once a week, depending on how extreme you want to get with it, do the 100,000 foot view where you just read the bolds all the way through, and just a simple exercise. Or you can say, you know what? You can even take it through sections. If you're like weak on a section, a lot of people are weak on a section of the Bible we call the minor prophets. It's like towards the end of the Old Testament. It's kind of the area where most people ignore. You could actually take this document and just go to the minor prophets. In fact, you can even do the major, where you can start from Isaiah and go through Malachi, and you just read through it all. You can get done with that in like less than 10, 20 minutes. And boom, you've got a decent overview of what that section is about. You can bolster certain areas of the Bible so that all of a sudden you're oriented with it. So by the way, if you're interested in this document here, you can email me at andrew.uyama@nccsda.com, and I'd be happy to send this to you. We're working on figuring out how to make this available to the whole church, because I really want, for the Placerville Seventh-day Adventist Church, and anybody for that matter, to be able to have a document like this. But also at the same time, I'm learning that other people are catching on to this idea. I wasn't the first to think of this, because as soon as I did this, guess what happened? Social media started advertising to me other people who have made similar things like this, and they've made them more beautiful with color and laying them out as a map. So that's actually a better thing. I'm actually trying to buy some of them just because maybe if those are cool enough, I give those out instead. But at least for right now, this here was this would be free. I'd give this to anybody, whatever. This is so friends, there you have it. This is basically read through overview. That's one style of studying the Bible. No, it does not go deep. This goes wide and it goes broad, and it's designed to orient you, okay? This is not where you're going to get your doctrine. You're not going to develop your doctrinal belief from this method of Bible study. In fact, I don't recommend it, because this is just a fly through overview. That comes later. We'll get into other methods of study. Eventually, we'll touch on doctrinal. We'll touch on topical and those kinds of things. But right now, we're just dealing with the basics. We're going to give you the tools to handle the text, to interact with the Creator, the Savior, the God of the universe, through this wonderful book that has changed my life, is life-changing. And I've gone through almost 30 years of studying this book. When I first started studying it, I had no idea what I was doing. I would just kind of open it up and I would like look at it, and I would just try to dig into the text. I would hear people say things like, yeah, go deeper. It's better to know one text really, really well than the whole Bible. I fully agree with that, but especially when we have the resources to do it, we do it. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I don't have time to do something like that. Well, one of the answers is use the tool, use the overview tool. But as I heard one speaker say not too long ago, he gave two solutions to it. I know, and he was kind of trying to be snarky about it, so I'm going to repeat it. But he says, either get up earlier or do less. Those are the two ways to go about it. And I find if I try, when I go about one of these two things, it works. But I do realize there are some people that are even busier than this guy. But do the best you can with what you got. If you only have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to study the Word, hey, chip away at it. Don't say to yourself, oh, I only have 10 to 15 minutes. It's not worth it to get in the Word. No. I would say use it. Do it. Don't just skip it just because you feel like you have to have a half hour. You feel like you got a half hour, otherwise it doesn't count. We're not worried about anything counting. We're worried about just getting into the text, getting familiar with it, letting it minister to your heart and your life and draw you near to God. And this is one of the easiest ways to get to know God, is by studying His Word. And so there you have it, friends. Thank you for being with us and joining us for PV Insights. I hope this helps. And next time we'll deal with what, so what, and now what. God bless you. Keep the faith.